welcome. If you're watching this video, what we're doing here is actually interviewing a customer, a real customer of Great Western. His erector is on this too. The guy's Seth up there, and we got Braden over here who's managing it, making sure that we follow the rules. So this is kind of the first set of hopefully a video series that we do. And actually, if you watch this, it means it was a success and we're going to continue doing it. So yeah, I'm Eric. I am the owner, I guess, of Great Western Building Systems. Chad Spooner down here is the owner of Great Western Tree Care. And those names are kind of similar. We'll get into that. And we have Seth at Nordic Steel Construction, who actually assembled Chad's building. Then we have Braden, who works for us, and he has a podcast as well and does a lot of vlogs. I guess we'll just kind of get into it a little bit. First, a real quick disclosure here. Chad is a very close friend of mine, hence the names of our companies being similar. And
I got one thing. I'm going to cut you off there. You did say that you were, I guess, the owner of the company. I'm going to have to say your wife, Nicole.
Okay, it might be. It's probably Nicole, right? Or at least she's the boss. I might own it on paper, but I'm not actually in charge.
Right. You just work there, buddy.
Yeah, I just work here. And Seth up here at Nordic Steel Construction is my brother. So obviously, our first video, we're not sure how this is going to go. We wanted to make sure that it was very easy for all of us to talk. So, but Seth did put up Chad's building. And I think that's all of the disclosures that we have to get out. So anyways, what we're going to talk about today is a little bit about our businesses. But more specifically, this is designed to be a video series or a vlog series, kind of podcast style format. And we're going to get down into the nitty gritty of exactly what Chad went through with putting up a commercial pre-engineered metal building. We're going to get all the way down into the money and everything. We got a list of questions that we want to ask Chad, and we'll try to timestamp everything. So if it's like, these guys are idiots, I don't want to listen to them, but you just want to get into the numbers, we'll make sure that those are timestamped in the video and you can just go into. It's a commercial project, so there's a lot of particulars that add to the cost versus, say, like a backyard workshop or, just even a 50 by 100 pre-engineered metal building. With a commercial permit, you need a lot more. And yeah, we're going to get into that. So, hey, Chad, tell us about yourself.
All right. Hey, everybody. Where do I start? My name's Chad Spooner. I own Great Western Tree Care based out of Larkspur, Colorado. We started our company in 2018, and we've been running hard ever since. Happily married, two great boys. They're getting old too dang quick. Can't keep up with that. A little bit more background that, with what led us to this podcast, was, just tree work, and I started a tree care company in Albuquerque back in 2007, and, ran it hard. It was a tough gig though, because back then, my wife was still working at the bank as an indirect lender, and I was doing everything. I was training, I was hiring, I was firing, I was doing the work, I was giving the bids, every single facet of running a business I was doing by myself. Which
this is Albuquerque.
This was Albuquerque. This is, going back, probably what now, 18 years ago when the company got started in Albuquerque. And it started with my best friend working for me. I was paying him $15-20 an hour or whatever. We had a trailer, and we were trying to do our thing. And, I got lucky and met a gentleman in Albuquerque named Eric. For the life of me, I can't remember his last name, but he owned a company called Eric's Tree Care in Albuquerque. And he was one of the guys that was actually doing the right thing. He was a certified arborist. He was a phenomenal climber. He was doing plant healthcare services, which all three of those things are very, very rare in Albuquerque. If you're running a tree care service in Albuquerque, it's typically a bunch of cowboy fly by night guys with a truck and a chainsaw. I think they're going to, go make a bunch of money and whatever.
It's easy with a chainsaw.
And yeah, with the chainsaw, I mean, hey, it's strong power tool, dangerous power tool. Anyhow, so I bought Eric's old truck. We were probably 2-3 years into the company. I bought his older truck he was getting rid of, and he kind of took an interest in me. He took a liking to me. He saw that we were trying to do the right thing, that we were young, we were ambitious, and for a brief moment, he didn't take me under his wing, but he showed me some tricks. And that was kind of the point where it changed everything for.
What do you mean tricks?
Climbing tricks, tricks of the industry. There's many different levels of tree care professionals. A lot of them you can't even call professionals. They're just dudes out there trying to cut trees. They're putting ladders in trees. They're not wearing the proper climbing equipment. They're not wearing the proper safety equipment. If they landed a big job, they went to Home Depot and bought a brand new pull-on chainsaw to go out and do it. They didn't have a chainsaw,
Okay, I have a pull-on chainsaw.
Right.
It's nice.
I'm sure you do, buddy. No, you got a Farm Boss, if I remember correctly.
No, I blew that up.
It's got a 24-inch bar.
I forgot to premix the gas, and I blew it. It does have a 24-inch bar.
No, because isn't that the chainsaw I got back from you, and I actually have that at my house now? Because
I bought a new one to replace it. Yeah.
And then you blew that one up?
No, I think I brought it to the shop and left it for the guys to cut dunnage wood, and I don't think it's here anymore. It just walked away. So
if you bought a pull-on, brother, we're gonna have a conversation after this podcast about.
No, I do. It's great. It's great.
Okay.
It's great.
Okay. Anyhow, so like Eric, so there's a big difference between professional tree work and fly-by-night tree work, or just like guys who are going out trying to do it with a truck and a trailer. There is a line you cross into, like with any industry, especially service industries, where you actually have to start acting like a professional company. We didn't really get there in Albuquerque. We tried our butts off, man, but once again, I was a one-man show on the back end of things, and and it was exhausting. It was just overwhelming and exhausting. And I think the biggest crew that I ever had was like 3 or 4 guys working for me, and we were lucky to push. I think the biggest year that we hit was like right around $300,000. And that was just grinding every day to the max.
No, I mean, $300,000, that sounds pretty good. I mean, you got to pay a few guys, but you said you're only paying them $15 an hour.
No, I mean,
or is that total revenue, or is that profits?
No, that was total revenue. Like all the money that came in was $300,000. Then you got to pay for tools, you got to pay labor, you got to pay this, gas, et cetera, et cetera.
Advertising.
So and back then I thought I was like, yeah, I'm rich. We did $300,000. I'm rich, but it was still. There was a lot of room for improvement. So what our kids were getting of school age, and we decided that we didn't want to raise the kids in Albuquerque. We wanted to get out because, after the 2008 housing bubble burst and all that, Albuquerque kind of started to deteriorate a little bit. Like the nicer neighborhoods are no longer nice, and the house that you could buy for $350,000 in the nice neighborhood dropped to $160,000. And it definitely forced in some elements that, that were, it just,
So you got out of there. You came to Colorado.
Yeah, we got out of there. And my brother moved from Boston down to Castle Rock, Colorado, and we joined him. And for me, it was an easy decision getting out of Albuquerque. I was born and raised there, and I wanted to get the heck out. And what I saw with Denver, at least the greater Denver area, was it's kind of the hub of the Southwest. There's a lot of money here in the Denver area, a lot of growth. There's really nowhere else in the Southwest that's growing like Denver is.
The whole Front Range in general.
The whole Front Range. I mean, Salt Lake you might throw into that a little bit, but like Denver is kind of the mecca of the Southwest. And
it's
the
new Valley.
What's that?
It's the new Silicon Valley.
Oh no, it's the new Riverside, California, man.
Yeah,
right. It is
suburbia and growth, but trees don't grow very well out there. So here comes Chad.
So we came to Colorado, and I was exhausted from running my company for years, so I decided to go to work for a company. Went to work for a huge outfit called Mountain High up in Denver. We were living in Castle Rock, and
this is when you and I met.
Not at that moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I went to work right away, and I ended up probably meeting you 2.5 years later.
Oh, okay.
We ended up in this tiny little apartment in Castle Rock with 2 dogs and 2 kids. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. It was pretty brutal for 6 months. And I was traveling from Castle Rock to Denver, which, it was 35 minutes there because I was leaving at 6 a.m, but it was an hour to 2.5 hours home every night. And it was brutal.
Yeah. God forbid it rains or snows.
Yeah, exactly. Or there's a wreck, somebody got into an accident. But when I went to work for Mountain High, I was nervous. I remember because I've been doing tree work for 9 years already. I'd ran a company for 9 years and I thought I was good. I thought I was good at what I did. But I didn't know. And I knew like the top climbers in the industry, the top tree guys were based out of Denver. And so I stepped into this company, and of course, at the interview with Mountain High, I talked myself up like I was the best tree guy on the planet, and blah, 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 blah. And they hired me as a foreman, which it's the first time in the history of their company they hired somebody as a foreman. Usually
right out of the gate, usually
right out of the gate. Like usually they start you as a back climber and you got to push your way through. And I remember day one, I walked in and I'm like, what? Am I going to be able to hold up here? Like, what's going to happen? I was nervous that I wasn't nearly as good as I thought I was in the industry. It turned out that I was fine. I was good.
Yeah, you're good.
I was in the right spot. But let me elaborate a little bit more on that. I know you want to get to some other stuff, but because a lot of this leads into the purchase of a building. So at Mountain High, I worked there for about 2 years. This company was big. They were sending out 12 trim crews a day with 3 guys per crew. They were averaging, I would say, between 18 and 25,000 a day just on trim.
Wait, $18,000 and $25,000?
Yeah, $18,000 to $25,000 a day.
How many crews is that?
That was 12 crews going out trying to make right around $2,000 is what they were shooting for. And this was back in 2014.
How many guys are on a crew?
You had 3 guys, maybe 2, but definitely 2, max of 3. And that was like a whole new level for me coming from, Chad's Tree and Shrub Service in Albuquerque where we were trying to make $1,500 a day, And so it was eye opening, to see just the level of tree work that was being done, how many solid guys there actually were in the industry. And then also how a professional company ran operations. I paid attention to the back end stuff. I paid attention to the office. I paid attention to the salesman. I paid attention to what they were doing.
This is a different environment than what you were working in Albuquerque.
Night and day difference. Now I'm working for, one of the top 2 tree care companies in the Denver area that was pulling in probably 22 to 25 million a year annually. And it was
That's
cool.
a lot.
It was a lot. You had your trim operations, your plant healthcare operations, your planting operations. They had a Christmas light division that would hang Christmas lights in the winter. So they were a monster. And I paid attention to how just operations ran and how different it was from how I was doing it in Albuquerque.
In Albuquerque, for tree care, you didn't have much of an education, like not an education, but an introduction to professional tree care is more
right,
like just guys in a pickup truck.
Yeah, I was working on a framing crew, and the next day I was doing tree work, and I started my company.
All right,
that's how.
And now you're a high level arborist.
Now I'm an arborist, and I got a bunch of other credentials I could throw out at you in the tree industry, but I won't do that.
It's funny how I started in the metal building industry, like as a sales guy that just answered an ad, and it looked like it was enough money to pay rent, chase tail, and maybe go to the bar every once in a while.
Right.
And it's funny how it works.
Well, I remember I was going to school at the time as well, and I was in a semester that was just vicious. It was like chemistry 2, calculus 2. I had my first physics class and my third environmental science class. And it was just grueling. And I was 21 years old, locked in my room, studying all the time. And I wasn't chasing girls. I wasn't doing the things that I thought I should be doing at 21. And I hated it because I'm one of those guys, if I'm going to pass the test, I actually have to study. You know, there's guys out there that just got to show up to the lecture and they're good to go. You know, like me, I would like.
But you're taking chemistry, physics, college level, and
calculus.
Calculus, and your future is a guy that chops down trees.
Yes, that's what ended up happening in the end.
Engineering major?
Well, what happened? Funnily enough,
Braden's asking a question. What?
Were you an engineering student? Is that what you're doing?
I was going for an environmental science degree, but I with a genetics was like the big focus as well.
Okay, so you moved to
all right, yeah. I go to work for
Colorado. You're living in a 2-bedroom apartment. You're doing freelance tree care as a this is before you're doing freelance. You're doing tree care, and then you started doing freelance.
Yeah. So
what was that like?
After about 2 years,
contract, right?
Yeah. It's called contract climbing. After about 2 years of working at Mountain High, I just decided I could make better money going out and being a contractor. It was starting to become a thing pretty much countrywide in the industry, where guys that were good enough would go contract for a handful of companies. And when you're a contract climber, it's you're like a hired gun, essentially. You know, the company hires you to come and they're going to pay you a day rate and they're going to have you come do whatever they want done that day. You could be getting into a situation where you're climbing 3 60-foot maples, or you could be getting into a situation where you got to remove a 90-foot cottonwood over a house with a crane. And you didn't know. As the contractor, you weren't privy to that information. You just showed up in the morning and this is what you had to do, whatever they had for you that day.
Okay.
And you weren't part of the crew. It's a lonely man's game because the crew doesn't respect you, number one, because they know that you're making $400 a day fixed rate and they're making $25 an hour busting their butt every day for this company. And, you know, as a warning,
there's a qualification level there though. You're qualified to do this work, or this company has said, hey, this is the guy that's going to do this, you know, $25 an hour. I mean, I guess 10 years ago, I mean, that's a pretty darn good rate.
Right. And, you know, for any guys who try to become contractors or have this goal of becoming a contract climber, you know, there's one thing you have to really worry about is that you better be the best dude on that job site every single day.
So you got to work harder. If you slack, those guys are going to be even worse to you.
It's not about slacking. It's just like having the skill set behind you to be the best guy on the job site. Because if you show up to, you know, Preservation Tree Care's job site for the day and they have 3 guys that have been with the company for 2 years and they're decent climbers, and you show up and you're not as good as they are, they will mutiny. Because they're looking at their boss saying, you hired this guy for $400 and I'm making $25 an hour. Are you kidding me? They will mutiny. Right. So you better be that good if you want to be the contract guy.
And you were that good.
I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but yes, I was very good in the industry when I was younger.
Okay. Well, now that you're older, you can't climb a tree.
Well, you know, my shoulders aren't what they used to be, you know.
So
it's great. I'm getting old, you know?
So this has to be eventually when we met. We were neighbors, and tell us about starting Great Western Tree Care.
Yeah, so you know, I realized pretty quickly that I didn't like the contract climbing industry, and I saw just the market in Denver for tree work across the whole Front Range was just unbelievable. I mean, like I'd never seen in my life. It was the craziest tree care market I'd ever seen, and like a lot of money, a lot of people, a lot of trees, a lot of issues with trees, just a ton of things that needed to be done. And about a year into contract climbing, I remember telling my wife, like, I'm gonna do it, hon. Like, I'm gonna start another company, and this time you're coming with me. You're quitting your job, and we're gonna go all in. And I remember telling her, like, I want everything in my name. I don't want anything in your name or like our personal house, like everything's just got to be tied to me. And if it fails, I fail, not the family. And that was it, man. I mean, I went all in, you know, and I went all in, not knowing if I was holding pocket aces or 7 deuce. I didn't even look at my cards. I just said, let's go. And, you know, that I remember Eric, you know, you and your wife were kind enough to buy us our first piece of equipment. You guys bought us our dump trailer.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, it was funny because we had just started Great Western Building Systems, or maybe a couple years before or something like that. And the company wasn't what it is now. And I remember I came back to you one time and I was like, hey man, you got to buy the trailer back from us. We
did that money back. Right? It was like $5,000 at the time or something.
Yeah, we were stressed out about it.
Yeah, we were very stressed out about it. But no, and so we you know, that when I was leading up to opening, I knew my start date was January 1st, 2018. That's when I wanted to.
That's the day you started Great Western Tree Care.
That's the day we went live and we started the company. Leading up to that, you know, it was on the back end, writing the website content, making friends, you know, in the industry already, trying to figure out like how we get that when we open up, we don't want to not have a job day one. So I was making friends. I might've been doing a little bit of selling, trying to kind of line things up for that start date. And, yeah, I mean, January 1st hit and away we went. And it's been a roller coaster.
It has been a roller coaster.
January 1st of what year was that?
2018 was when we filed.
2018. And that's when you went with, Great Western Tree Care.
Yeah. So yeah. Eric, I mean, I think you're wrong about 2 years. I
get to tell the story better than you.
You go ahead, man. You go ahead.
Right. And you know, my memory's not that great. I remember events very well. I don't remember the time. But Chad had, what would you have? You had 5220 Tree Care or like elevation.
5280.
But for anybody that's from Denver, everything is named Elevation. You know, it's the Elevation Brewery, it's the Elevation grocery store, it's the Elevation, any service you have, it's either Elevation or 5280 because it's Mile High. And so Chad had Elevation, but he really didn't like the name. Yeah, 5280 weed dispensary.
Right.
And Elevation was kind of synonymous with the legalization of marijuana. And Chad didn't like the name, and he's asking me, and he's like, I don't know what it is. I can't figure out the name for my company. And I mean, I thought it would just be Chad Spooner's Trees. Right. And, anyways, we're talking about it. Terrible. And, I looked at Chad.
That's a good old country boy name.
Well, I looked at Chad and I said, hey, why don't you name it Great Western Tree Care? And, Chad said, well, I was thinking about that, but, you know, I didn't want to, you know, do that to you or ask you. And I said, hey, man, as long as you're not selling metal buildings, there's no problem.
No, I actually remember I was driving down the highway having this conversation with you in my truck, and we were on Bluetooth. And you're like, just do Great Western. I'm like, man, like, I don't know. Like, and he's like, you're like, screw that, man. Like,
it's a good name for a tree
company.
Hey,
you're like, Chad, it sounds like you've been around for 100 years with Great Western. You know, you're like 4th generation tree guy in the company, man, you know? And I've actually had other business owners say it sounds like an insurance company. And I'm like, that's perfect. Like, it sounds like you've been around forever. You know?
Midwest Mutual Trees.
Yeah.
Right. So, all right. So you start this company, and this is starting to run on. People are here to hear about metal buildings, and so you hire these guys, or you know, you start your company. I remember when you were building your website, we spent so much time talking about it.
Right. Let me elaborate. Before we even started the company, I did have a vision. I had a plan that within 5 years of operations, I wanted a building. I wanted a home for the company.
Right, because you're running out of your house at that time.
Yeah, we started out of the house. You know, I mean, we were living in an HOA community. I couldn't park my trucks there. We were parking trucks at a storage unit. But we did have the long-term vision of having a building, and we wanted that done in 5 years. time went on, we worked, and 2018 we did great. We grew at 140% year 2, probably 180% year 3. And it was just
So when
compounding.
you're talking about what kind of revenue are you talking about? Or you don't have to get into that.
No, that's fine. I think year 1 we did more than I ever did in Albuquerque after
Okay.
9 years.
over
running.
300 grand or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then year 2 we did like 720, and then year 3 we hit $1 million. Year 3,
I remember when you hit $1 million.
we had the million.
Like,
we had
yeah.
the $1 million the $1 million party, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then it started to get real at that point. Now, I mean, to make $1 million in tree work, you have to have good tree care professionals behind you. Actually, like work, you have to have employees. You have to have people in the office. There's so much going on, the logistics of it. And I felt like we were hiring the right people, and we were firing the right people, and we were buying equipment, and like the only way to grow in any industry, but especially in tree care, is you got to buy more trucks, you got to buy more chippers, you got to hire more dudes, you got to train more people, and I felt like the path moving through it was awesome, and we quickly, very very quickly, and throughout Douglas County, which is just south of the Denver area, we became the tree care company that everybody was looking at.
Yeah, it was great. It was fat. I mean, looking back at it was like a year, and all of a sudden, like, you didn't have enough trucks, you didn't have enough chippers, you couldn't answer the phone calls, and that was a big thing for you, is being able to answer the phone calls. You wanted everybody when they called in to have the phone picked up, and I remember you struggling with that, being like, dude, I can't answer all the phone calls.
Right. It was just the marketing program we were doing with Google AdWords and all that. It
was
just
mostly
exploded.
word of mouth, if I remember right.
Word of mouth.
Like, you would do a job, and then like 2 neighbors would come over to you and fire their old tree care company.
Yeah. I mean, because I mean, I don't want to like boast or whatever, but like we do provide top quality tree care service.
This is the place to brag.
I'm going to brag. Like we in Douglas County, before I showed up to Douglas County in 2015, and I was watching all the tree guys around before, back then in 2016, when I became a contract climber and I contracted for a tree care service in Douglas County, it was a joke. Like, dudes weren't even wearing helmets. They were climbing on 1980 saddles, using 1980s Blake hitch methods to climb trees. It was a joke. They were cowboys. And the owners of the companies were just as big of a joke, in my opinion. They didn't care about safety. They were paying their guys ridiculously low wages. They weren't teaching. They weren't even abiding by like Department of Agriculture standards. It was every single company in the area. So I saw an avenue to say, you know what? I've been doing tree care long enough at this point to know what professional tree care looks like. And we did. And we literally changed the way that tree care is being done in Douglas County. I can say that Great Western Tree Care changed the way that tree care is being done in Douglas County today. We set the bar for every other company to come in here. Like, you have to live up to this expectation or go back to Colorado Springs.
Hey, I went to high school in Colorado Springs. Be nice in my hometown. So did Seth. All right, Chad. We got about maybe 45 minutes here. Okay, so
yeah. Sorry about the long introduction there, man. I need to elaborate a little bit.
It's good.
Yeah,
actually,
you're good.
I learned some stuff and remembered some stuff. So eventually we'll jump into Seth and start asking some questions on this metal building and stuff. But so eventually you moved to Larkspur, and you bought a commercial piece of property. And I mean, at first you're just, it was a container. It was really a place to park trucks.
Right. We ended up buying what it was just under 2 acres. It was just a dirt lot, and
with a hill.
With a nice hill, and we put a 20-foot metal storage container on it that I built out with shelves, so the guys had a place to put their saddles and chainsaws, and park the trucks there. We got the trucks out of storage and actually had a home for them. But it sucked, man. It sucked. I mean, the guys would show up to work every day on a dirt lot with a metal storage container, middle of winter, 18 inches of snow on the ground, whatever. And it sucked. It didn't feel like a home. And very, very quickly.
How many guys do you have working for you at this point?
At that point, probably 9.
9. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got 9 guys showing up to a dirt lot every morning.
Yeah.
To climb into a metal container.
Right. And it just sucked. It was cold. It was dirty. There was no place to kick back, have a beer. It just sucked. And so very quickly, I started working on a plan to get the building rolling. I had ideas about what I wanted, and I collaborated with Eric about, building size, where we're going to put it. What's good for a couple of trucks, like plant healthcare trucks who need to have a heated environment during the winter so they don't freeze pumps and whatnot. If we're going to have 2 of them to start, what kind of design are we looking at? And I worked hand in hand with Eric for a little while, like putting together the building design. And that was the easy part because I was working with Eric. I'm sure that any customer that works directly with Eric finds the process to be a little bit easier because you make things smooth and easy on the building side.
Okay, so we're getting into we already know the reason because your company was growing so fast, but we're getting into buying. Yeah, thank you. Getting into the metal building design. So Chad, I have this giant list of questions here, and I'm gonna try to get through them pretty quick, but I think you kind of already answered why you needed space, right? You had a growing business. You need a place. Well, tell us, first off, you have this lot, with a container on it, and it's kind of a home base and stuff, but you're still basically running the company out of your home. And so tell us about why you decided that you needed an actual building on your property. Well, the commercial property, I mean.
Yeah, you're right. We were still, even though we had the lot and a place for the trucks to sit and the guys to meet, we were still running out of the house. And I remember my wife hiring a girl to come sit in my dining room to answer the phone. And it was terrible, man. She thought it was weird. We thought it was weird. And then my son would come rolling in at 3:30 and then it got really weird, It was just a bad deal all around, man. And in order to in my opinion, to be solidified as a legitimate professional company, you have to have some kind of storefront, some kind of building, something, that says, we put in the work and we got a home, man. There's a lot of companies out there that buy or rent existing buildings. I don't want to do that. I wanted something new. I wanted something that was mine, that was ours, that we could say we did this and we built it, this is Great Western Tree Care's building. We didn't buy it from Joe Schmo, whatever. And it was important, man. And
right. It's not like the shop here, right? I was under so much of a time crunch. It was just like, I'll take anything. I tried to build the permitting in, what was that? Pueblo West. Buying the property was easy. And then it was like, all right, guys, I'm ready. I have all the documents and things really slowed down. But you decided to go the right way, build something purpose built for you to your vision.
Right.
Basically. Yeah. And actually, if I can share the screen, Chad actually wound up going with a 40 by 60 here, like a shed roof style. It's actually pretty cool. If I remember right, how do I?
Hey, Chad, did you get a soils report before you did your foundation design?
We did. We got 2 of them, actually.
And did you have GWB do your foundation design, or did you do that in-house or locally?
It was GWB did all of it.
So you wound up with this 40 by 60. How did you come up with that dimension?
At
first you were talking about this giant monstrosity. I was like,
yeah,
we're talking millions of dollars here.
Yeah, at first it was like, I want a 2-story deal because I see the future of this company where we're going to need, 25 office staff and blah, 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 blah. And I need multiple garages. But initially, and you, Eric, you designed that building for me. And I remember the email heading was like ridiculously expensive building. Here you go.
The western slope side.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah.
Yeah, it was like, something like $2.5 million to get. I'm like, oh yeah, that ain't gonna work. So we quickly got slapped in the face with what we could afford at the time, and something that would be still functional and usable and house us. And we came up with this design, or I should say, you came up with this design.
Well, no, if I remember right, you were looking because we had just done the first Floresta building, that shed roof. And I was so in love with it. I was like, man, this is beautiful. And I sent it over to you and you're like, yeah, that works, except change this and this and this. Like, I mean, it's other than the snow load and that little awning you have underneath of it, it's almost the same.
Yeah. I mean, like the big thing for us is I wanted a shop that I could house 2 trucks in, and the 40 by 40 shop, I felt was good to put 2 trucks in and build out space for guys to be able to house, like, lockers for the tree guys to have their gear in, a chainsaw area where all the chainsaws would live.
It's a wall. I've seen the picture.
Yeah.
And it's a wall of chainsaws. You got to have 50 chainsaws hanging up there.
Yeah, we got a bunch, and then, you got to have your workbenches, your tool areas and all that. And I felt like a 40 by 40 would house that. We needed office space too. And I love the 20 by 40 foot office space. I figured I could work with that. Honestly, we outgrew it very quickly, the office side of things, because, it's just not, if it was double the size, if it was 40 by 40, it would be a lot more functional, but I wouldn't change it for what it is. And we shouldn't have put the kitchen in. We should have had more office space. You
don't use much of the kitchen?
No, we really don't. No,
because you actually have a full kitchen, right? Like, I mean, there's a stove in there, isn't there?
No stove, but there's dishwasher, sink, the whole nine. And, it's just not an area that's used as much as I'd like it to be. Because, the guys are in the shop. We have, the guys have a table in the shop that we meet at, so anyhow, I mean, we needed something with at least some kind of office space and some kind of shop space. And I felt like at the time this was big enough to house us, moving forward.
That's a pretty decent sized space. It's, 2,400 square feet. You got 1,600 square feet of shop, and you did a demising wall between them. But, so did you look at any other building types? Like, were you looking at pole barn, stick frame, probably not tilt wall, but, did you think about just building it old fashioned timber construction? No.
I mean, we decided to go with metal building right off the bat. I mean, that was partly because of you.
I think it's nice about a metal building. You get the clear span, you get it's fairly reasonable to install, and Seth did the installation here, but, I got these questions here. They're like one size fits all for all of our customers. I mean, you don't look at any other steel building companies, right? As far as I remember. Maybe you did. You should have.
No.
All right.
Should have.
And the building itself, Chad, when you in our last interview, or when we decided that, hey, we want to broadcast this thing, this is so great, because we're getting into the money and everything. You mentioned that you didn't have a lot of input in the overall design, but that's not the way I remember it. I mean, you're very meticulous. You were like, I want a window, I want a window in this location because that's where I'm putting this office. And I want Stephanie, your wife, Stephanie, to be able to look out of the window because you guys do have a nice view and all of this stuff. But,
you're right. With the office side of things, the windows were important. The 2 doors on the back left and the back right, that was important for me to be able to access outside there. Because behind the building, is where we have that metal container now, which we store, a lot of planting material and other stuff in. So it was important to have those 2 accesses. Other than that, we wanted light in the office. I didn't care about light in the shop. You got these 2, massive garage doors in the front, which if you open them up, offer plenty of light. And we decided. And we
can go down and look at that.
Maybe going forward, we decided to put garage doors in that had windows in them as well to get a little bit more light in there. So
right, yeah, with these giant 18 by 12s.
Yeah.
So those gave you room to bring the trucks in, And I mean, do you bring them in side by side or just a single truck per bay?
You can fit 3 trucks in there if you wanted to.
Okay.
You would have to take one of them and kind of come at an angle and then get in the center of the space, and then 2 trucks on either side.
Like here. Okay. Yeah. Your trucks are pretty big. And then over here, I remember you're really into this, the entrance into the building for your customers.
Right. And just the overall look and appeal of it. I wanted to I didn't want the front door off to the side. I wanted it dead center. I had a design for the build out of the office space, and I felt like if it was off to the side, it wouldn't have worked. And I have more designs, with landscaping. So that works for my landscaping plan. And it was all thought about kind of pre-advanced, at least the beginnings of starting to think about it. Things change, you get your space and you're like, man, I thought I was going to do it this way, but instead I'm going to do it this way or something, and then it's an ever changing thing. With at least the landscape side and the build out of the interior, the build out of the shop, the building is the building, and you have to work around what you got with the building. And I think I've changed the shop itself probably 3 times since the erection of it, as far as where the workbenches are located. I got to move this over here. I don't have enough space there. I got to optimize this, and it's just an ongoing thing. And I don't know if it ever ends.
Well, it was actually a really nice design. I think you did a good job on it. Of course, Seth had to put it up, and with putting it up, Seth had to put in that high R insulation system that you had,
right?
All of these framed openings, everything like that. And I remember when Seth was out there putting it up, the awning over the front doors is like, man, why are we doing this? It's what Chad wants. But he they put it up pretty nicely. So hold on, we'll jump into Seth here with the construction, because I'm sure that's what everybody wants to know. And really, we'll jump into how much this thing cost. And we could skip over how was the service with GWB, and obviously it's gonna, you're a friend of mine, so you better not say anything bad. But actually, I remember the personnel doors. Because I ordered them myself and never bothered to check the plans. You had 10-inch girts. Seth knows this. Right. Oops, sorry guys.
Yeah.
So Seth, you installed the personnel, or did you actually even install the personnel door frames?
Yes, we installed the 8-inch personnel doors in a 10-inch girt system. I don't know if that was ever changed out.
Well, I sent new door frames.
Yeah, no, they were definitely changed out.
Okay.
I remember Seth came to me. He was getting going on the installation. He's like, "Hey man, I got to talk to you." And I'm like, "What's going on?" He takes me over there. He's like, "This doesn't work, bro." And I'm like, "What doesn't work?" I didn't even see it. I'm like, "What doesn't work?" And you grab the door jamb and put it up, and you're like, "This doesn't work." And I'm like, "Oh crap."
we made it work for the time being.
Right.
Yeah, I remember Chad called me, and I'm like, "No, I don't make mistakes. That's other people in my company make mistakes." And I'm like,
Right.
There's no way it's wrong because I did this myself. And I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I said, but I got him out there in, under a week, I think.
Yeah, it was quick.
Yeah, it was quick.
Yeah.
But so obviously you hired out the erection crew, right? You went through Mountain State, which is Cecil's
Right.
company. Now it's Nordic Steel. and we're still friends with Mountain State. So, Seth did sell his company, and we get along with those guys great. I know Seth works with them, hand in hand every day, and but he's got his own thing going on up there in Montana. Probably, we won't get into the stuff that goes on in Montana when you live in the woods, but
yeah.
Seth, walk us through the erection of this thing. Right. There was a couple things. I think we had a couple of clips and stuff, and this is early on in this manufacturing facility. But walk us through the putting up the building system, the foundation, or you didn't do the foundation. I think you had, was it Ivan or who's the foundation guy on this thing?
From Aztec.
Aztec. Yeah, Ramon.
Yeah. Ramon, thank you. Yeah. So Ramon did the foundation. It was a pretty straightforward foundation. We did have a little hiccup in the foundation since that's what we're on right now. He misread the plans and did, if I remember correctly, he incorporated the sheeting notch into the foundation plan. So the 40 by 70, yes, he ran it 3 inches short. If I remember correctly, that was ran 3 inches short. So it was 3 inches short of 40 and 3 inches short of 60. But all the bolts were in the right place. So everything went together smoothly. Building went up just fine. There were a couple of quirks and small details. I know that we had the issue with the door jams. We fought the garage doors a little bit. And I know that we had a roof leak that we came back to and corrected. That definitely wasn't a erector problem. And we came back and corrected that. And if I remember correctly, there was a HVAC error that they had actually went in and cut holes into the roof after the fact. Yeah. And that was a leak I could not fix because I didn't know how to fix that. That was a penetration into the roof system that was compromised. So
How did that wind up getting resolved?
The HVAC guys came back and fixed it.
They just throw down a bunch of butyl and mastic, and
Couldn't tell you exactly what they did up there. I wasn't with them, but
they did a quality job.
They did a quality job. Absolutely.
Nice.
And on that topic, we did miss a couple of screw lines, and that's the foreman's or the boss's job. And there was a small leak in the roof originally. Had to go back. I walked the roof myself, checked it, double checked it. There were a couple of screws that were missed, so there were small penetrations because I think on that roof we pre-drilled the roof for the purlin line, and there were a couple of screws that were missed that allowed a leak into the roof. And that was corrected. And I mean, at the end of the day, that is what it is. And that was my mistake. And it was fixed and corrected.
I'm gonna pull up Chad's the erection drawings here because I think this has a pretty high level insulation system in it, right?
Oh yeah, we went big. We live in Larkspur, Colorado. So there's
It was an R38 if I remember off the top of my head.
R43 Skyliner system.
43. Okay, yeah.
Oop. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom up on it. Hopefully I'm not making everybody dizzy here. But yeah, so the roof insulation was an R43. So a leak up there would be a big deal because it's wicking into the fiberglass. And how'd you catch that leak? Seth? Did Seth not catch it? Did Chad catch it?
No, well, Stephanie was the one that actually called me. The leak was caught.
You could see the water coming in through the roof.
Yeah. We had a little puddle in the shop.
Yep, there was a puddle at the shop where it dripped onto the concrete. When I came in, because I showed up the day after they told me they had a leak, and checked for the leak and followed it from where it started to where I believed it was, and obviously it was a roof penetration. Got on the roof and walked every purlin line, every screw line back and forth across the roof one at a time until I found the 2 missing screws that were in the holes that they were supposed to be in.
It was a pre-drill. You just, like, the screw wasn't in there.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's easier than having to get a cinch strap in there. So it wasn't a bad hole or a bad screw. It was just, it wasn't.
It was a missed screw. Yeah. So, depending on the situation, there are times to pre-drill a roof and there are times not to pre-drill a roof. In Chad's building, it was definitely a time to pre-drill a roof because he had a low roof pitch with a high R value insulation. They were a high gauge, so there was no sag in his purlins. So all of his purlins ran straight.
So Chad had 10-inch purlins. He's got a big snow load on this roof. But the purlins were, let me get down to the roof.
14 gauge, if I remember off the top of my head.
No, they're all 14 gauge. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, forgive me. This was a few years ago.
2 years ago. Yeah.
So, they were all 14 gauge roof purlins, and they were all 10-inch, and 10-inch to require the R43. So there wasn't sag in there, and there was such a high, because you have your cavity fill versus your compression on your insulation, and there was such a thick insulation and compression that I made the determination to go ahead and pre-drill his roof panels because his purlins were straight. So we pre-drilled that, put them in, missed 2 holes. That's where the leak was. The leak dropped through, met the purlin, and leaked underneath the purlin, but it traveled downhill to the next purlin.
Right, okay.
Yeah, traveled down to the next purlin where it dropped. So that's why we just went up.
It was a good leak. It wasn't leaking directly into the cavity insulation, wicking it all. It hit metal and ran down and out.
Yep. Yeah. It dropped down. It followed the rafter down to wherever it found gravity. And I'm not Newton, so I can't tell you all how that works. But it traveled down until it decided to drop. So at the rafter, followed that up, repaired those leaks, and then a week later called back to repair the other leak, which was found to be an HVAC penetration. I don't know what was done underneath that HVAC penetration.
I think it's just vent pipes coming up.
Just
right,
a vent. It was just a vent pipe.
Just a vent.
A vent pipe with a sock over the top of it. So I'm not sure what the solution was on that. Chad, the size of your building. Are you happy with the size of your building? Or did you want to go bigger or smaller?
If I had to do it over again, I would have gone a little bit bigger.
That's what everybody says.
Every man says.
Everybody says, like, if commercial or just a backyard workshop, it's like, hey, once I had the space, I filled it up.
Yeah.
Now I need more.
Quickly. Yeah.
Quickly what? Oh, you filled it up.
We quickly filled it up. And, yeah, I mean, if I had to do it over again, I would say an 80 by 60 probably would have been more suitable.
Every customer I talk to that's trying to buy their own building, I ask them why they want their building, and 9 times out of 10 they said, I want my truck here, I want my truck here, I want my snowplow here. This is how I'm going to fill my shop. What are you going to do next year when you buy a snowplow?
Right.
You should always go 10% bigger.
What are you going to do with your stuff? Right? Because it's going to get filled up.
Right. But I mean, we're happy with the building, and it suits us for now. But yes, I mean, in hindsight, a little bit bigger would have been nice.
But you also did a build on the premium space on your lot.
Right. We do have another space in the lot that we want to do the bigger building. That's round 2 and the vision is like this building here that's been erected will become the plant healthcare building. It will store all the chemicals. I'm not going to put people in it like office space. The office space will probably just be completely done away with, and it'll all be moved to the new building, but it'll be a storage.
In general,
Braden, go ahead.
Your advice for somebody looking to build something similar to what you have would be, if it's within the reason of expanding your budget to go bigger, just do it ahead of time and look to the future a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, nobody can predict what's going to happen in the future, but if you have an idea for what if the building size that you're picking will house the equipment that you have now, like Seth said, go 10-20% bigger, because what's going to happen in 2 years? You're going to buy another truck.
Design
you're going to hire more office staff. You're going to need more space.
Well, that's exactly what happened to Chad.
Right.
Which brings me to my next question. And Chad, I have to ask, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it, or would you make changes while you did it?
Changes like what?
Size, not doing it at all, buying a pre-made property. That question is kind of endless.
1,000%. We're happy with the lot. We're happy with the building. We're happy with everything about it. There's still more room to grow within our lot. So if I had to do it again, I would do it all over again. I might have changed a few minor details. You say minor detail like the size of the building, which means more money, but
it's a big detail. I understand that.
It's a big detail, but it's Yes, I would do it again tomorrow. It was our shop for our company that I'd been working 18 years for, to get to this point to where we had something that we could call our own. So
It's
absolutely,
symbolic.
100%,
It's not just
I
a
would do it
building.
again for sure. For sure.
Yeah, symbolic's a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there was a reason. I guess my question was more based on, would you do it again? That I'm here in Montana building my own house. So, and I get asked that question again all the time. Would you do it again? And half of me wants to just say, yeah, I would just buy a house that was already built and not deal with the headache of building and dealing with the contractors. And that's kind of where we were leading to, was I was just curious, would you go through the headache again? Would you go through the headache again? Do it again? Even if you knew that you had the same outcome in front of you, whatever that was, where you're at now.
I would, because I don't like to buy other people's problems. If
like,
I'm gonna,
like an old boat.
Yeah, I don't like. If I'm going to buy a boat, I'll buy it new. If I'm going to buy a truck, I buy it new. If I'm going to build a building, I'm going to build it new. I at least I know at that point, if it's not maintained correctly, it was my fault, and I can't point the finger at anybody else.
Yep.
So,
well, Seth,
and there's a lot of pride. So there's a lot
Go
of
ahead.
there's a lot of, like, to me, and this could just be me. There's not a lot of pride in not doing it yourself. We did this thing. We did this thing from the ground up, every detail. I was there, putting in screws with you, Seth. I was there building out the whole thing. I was involved in every single part of the process. When it's done and you can stand back, look at your building,
It's yours.
and you're like, there's just a sense of, like, pride that comes over you. Like, man, we did this, dude. Like, we did this. We didn't buy this from somebody else. And I think that's what is important about a lot of people that have these ideas about the shop in their backyard or a commercial building. It's worth it. To me, it's worth it, because when you're done, you stand back with your wife and your kids and you're looking at it at 9 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night as the sun's going down and the sun's setting behind your building. You're like, ooh, like, man, we did this. We changed. Like, if you drive through Larkspur now, you will always see my building that we built, And
Yeah,
it's there forever.
did you pull your own permits? I have to ask. I actually never asked that, because I get customers that ask me that all the time.
No, it's commercial. Chad had to have a GC.
Yeah, WGC.
For like a residential
it
build,
was
you don't
Lee.
have to have the GC.
Yeah, no, and Lee was good people.
Lee was good. Like the initial start of the whole thing, I thought that I could do it myself, which was a big mistake. Especially if you're somebody looking to build a commercial building and you're the owner of said building, or said company, you're busy running your company. You don't need the headaches of all of the permitting that goes into it, the architectural, the mechanical, the soils reports, all of it, hiring subs, making sure subs show up on time. If you are the owner of a company doing this, I highly recommend hiring a GC that you trust that can just do all of it for you, so you can get on with your daily operations of running your company. Because it's a ton of work. Sometimes there's a lot of red tape when you're dealing with, getting your permits. And I feel like a good general contractor that can navigate their way through those things is invaluable. I would have doubled what I paid Lee to do what he did. When he was done, I sent him and his wife to Florida for a week, because it was like, dude, you only charged me this much. Like, here, go to Florida. Holy crap. Like, the amount of work you guys put in is unbelievable. And I think that's something that needs to be looked at if you're looking to do this kind of project. As a purchaser of a building, you have to look at all of it, because it's not, there's a lot of strong men out there with the attitude of like, oh yeah, man, I can cut that tree down. I could put up that building myself. No problem. Whatever. Piece of cake, man. Piece of cake. Easy stuff. but
Cutting a
it's
tree
not.
down's easy, man. Especially
easy,
if it's a
man.
big
They
one. You
change
hook a
it.
rope up to the top and hook your truck
Right.
up and just
But-
like, all right, you saw, I'll drive.
But it's not. I mean,
Look,
like
putting
what
a
I can
building
say,
up is
what I can
easy.
say sitting here right now is you have 3 individuals on this podcast, myself, Eric, and Seth, who are very, very specialized and good at what they do in their individual trade.
Right.
So if you want to hire a tree company, call Great Western Tree Care. If you want to hire a building company, call Great Western Buildings. If you want to hire a top-notch erector, call Seth. You know, like we're very good at what we do. And I was fortunate enough to know some of the right people going through this process. I can only imagine how difficult it could be if you didn't have quality people doing work with you and for you.
Those are some good plugs, Chad. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Right. And you did the trees in Larkspur. So I can say, hey, if you're in Larkspur, Castle Rock, the Front Range, call Great Western Tree Care.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Actually, you do know what you're talking about, which is amazing. But I'm growing trees here in Grand Junction out here in front of the shop. And like I talked to the nursery and I asked them what to do, and I called Chad, and Chad's like, what? They said only water that tree once a week, even when it's 100 degrees out there. Like you need to test your soil and figure out what moisture's in there. But okay. Let's dive into the actual money details, which is what
Sure.
people want to hear about. So, hey, Chad, how much was your metal building?
When it was all said and done, it was right around 80,000.
You mean just the pre-engineered metal building?
Just the building. I mean, if we're
Right.
talking,
I think it was like 76 or something like that,
Something.
right? And
If we're
that was 40 by 60. Or
Right.
Here we have it. Well, heck, I've left this thing on the screen the whole time. Hold on.
if we're talking, what the whole thing costs from start to finish. My wife and I had a number in mind. We were kind of around that $450,000 mark to get it done. In the end,
That's without the cost of the property, right?
the cost of property was done. That's just putting.
You already owned it. Okay.
Yeah, we already owned it. We were thinking somewhere between 450 is what we were comfortable with. It turned out costing us right around $5. So it was a little bit more, not a huge amount more, but a little bit more. And that's just the stuff you don't see coming, especially when you're a tree guy trying to be a general contractor, or trying to design trying to design something. You just don't see certain costs coming. But yeah, I mean, from the permitting cost to the dirt work, the foundation, the concrete, this, that.
Well, let's go
whatever.
into those specifics.
Yeah.
So the building was 80 grand, but that
I was going to say,
uh,
because we
that
talked
was-
about
that
it a
was-
little
go ahead,
bit
Brady.
in our initial interview, but I feel like it's worth hammering home the point again from that previous interview that you said that the extra money was not a big concern because it was used to avoid cutting corners, like with insulated doors and having one thing we'll say full assed versus the other being half.
Right. So going into that, it's if you're going to do this, you can have one mindset of like, hey, we have a tight, strict budget of X. You need, if you're going to do this, you need to take that mindset and just throw it out, get rid of it, because things change. And when when GWB calls you and says, hey, look, guys, like, if you're not going to put in this certain seam or whatever in the roof, it's just not going to work. There are things that come up in the course of doing this as you're building your building where there's not one individual on the planet that could, see every detail that's going to go into the process of doing this. And so things change, and you have to go in with the mindset of trusting the people that are doing the manufacture of the building, trusting them when they say, look, man, like you're located in Larkspur, Colorado. You probably need some heavier, thicker insulation in this building or it's going to get cold. You need to buy the upgraded garage doors. Cause if you skimp on the garage doors and you put R43 insulation in, what's the point? Spend the extra money on the doors. Yeah. It's going to cost you some more money, but it as a whole, when you shut those doors and it's 15 degrees outside, your shop is going to be warm in a matter of 3 minutes, instead of 3 hours, and so you got to look at those details and
right. And in Larkspur, you got a 50-pound roof snow load there.
Well, yeah,
it does. It snows in Larkspur.
What I'm trying to get at is that what I did. My wife wasn't on board with me 100% of the time, but like what I did was it was like I don't care. It wasn't a spare no expense. Like let's just throw a ton of money at it, but it was like whatever. We have to do this to make it better. Do it. What's it going to cost us? Okay, I mean whatever. Just do it. Because in the end, if you don't do it, you're going to regret it. It's like, well, shoot, and when the building's done and it's closed up and your erector guy walks away, he can't come back and take it apart and put it back together for you. That's not how it works.
Right. You're not adding new garage doors. You're not adding a thicker roof insulation.
It's done.
So
we've done it.
Yes, that's like, remobilization fee. I'll come back. Yeah, no problem. Right? So 80 grand, that was building the steel, the engineering, the foundation, or, at least the designs.
Right.
And your garage doors, your roof insulation, your wall insulation, the partition wall between your shop and the office, the windows, pretty much everything as far as the shell goes. But so dirt work, right? Like, cause you actually built into the side of a hill.
So me not being a general contractor and knowing how to build a metal building, I didn't anticipate or know what costs there were. I'm a pretty handy individual. Like if something needs to be done, I'll figure out how to do it. With this, I couldn't do that. I got to a point where it was like, I have to have somebody walking me through this. And as soon as we stepped to that level, it was like permitting costs, utility hookups. And you started looking at these costs like, holy crap, the town of Larkspur wants to charge me how much to tie into their sewer line? Like I had no idea that was a thing.
Well, how much was that?
They told me 26,000, but when we got down to it, the dirt work guy, Matt Fisher was like, no. We can take it from a 6-inch pipe down to a 4-inch pipe, which will drop the cost of 7,000.
And that was just based on occupancy for the building you built?
Yeah. And so like the without the dirt work guy, without Matt was a genius. Like that guy is just awesome. He knew the ins and outs of everything, how to save costs here, how to work with the town. Because if we would have had a different dirt work guy and we would have tied in with a 6-inch pipe to the 6-inch sewer line, it would have cost us $26,000.
So
he's like, no, man, we've done this 100 times. No, it cost us 7,000.
Oh, it only cost 7,000. It wasn't
7,000.
It wasn't $7,000 less. It was a total of $7,000.
7 to tie in versus 26 because Matt was like, nope. We can step down from a 6 to a 4 to tie in.
Well, whose decision was it to go with 6 initially?
Well, it's the town of Larkspur saying.
Oh, they were like, hey,
there you go. Like, we want our money.
Right. Like, hey, we got roads to build and town council members to pay. Okay,
right.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot of savings. Okay, so the hookups cost $7,000. I mean, it's a chunk, but that's mostly because it's commercial. Also, you're just hooked up, so I imagine it's the same with residential. But what about the actual dirt work? I mean, digging the hole for the foundation and putting the foundation.
Yeah. So, it was not a fixed price with Matt. Matt was like, here, man, here is what I think it's going to cost, and it should be somewhere around here. And I was like, okay, go. I think initially he said somewhere around $20,000, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, man. Let's get it done. And when you start building a building or doing anything like this, everything's $20,000 for some reason. It's like, electricity, $20,000, dirt work, $20,000, building erection, $20,000. Everything's just $20,000. And it becomes like a custom. Like, all right, another 20,
it's almost like it's all based off square footage.
Yeah, something like that. And so Matt did his thing, and he ended up coming in somewhere closer to like 16, 17. So, he said 20 initially and billed us 16, 17. So that was a savings for us.
Wait, 16, 17. What do you mean?
1,000.
16. Somewhere between 16. So 16 something. Almost 17.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you got a deal.
Yeah, we got a deal there. And, Matt's an honest guy, so he treated us right. And I remember with Mountain States, with Seth, like your initial quote was somewhere around like 22, 23 maybe.
Yeah, another $20,000.
And yeah, and when it was all said and done, though, like I remember my wife having a talk with your wife, like we have to bill a little bit extra for this. And I think we ended up giving you guys like an extra $2,000 for something, which is just part of the deal. You know, these are things that when you're closing out contracts, it's like, yeah, you know, we had to do this and this. Like, all right, cool, man. Here's another extra $2,000. You know, thank you so much for doing what you did.
So
and
$10 a square foot or $12 a square foot, something like that for the erection.
Yeah. And then, you know, we had the foundation concrete.
Actually, even less. I mean, $22,000, it's a 2,400 square foot building with a higher insulation system and a partition wall.
Right.
Okay.
And then, you know,
and gutters and downspouts.
And those overhangs.
And an overhang, yeah.
Right,
Above
and a
the front
leaking
part.
roof.
Yeah, and we came back for that immediately and repaired that.
Right.
Right. And so, you know, going from the dirt work to the concrete, you know, I didn't know what to expect for the cost. And it was a big difference. I'll tell you, I remember we got a couple estimates and the guy we went with, Ramon of Aztec, came in somewhere like right around 30 to 32. We got another estimate from a guy, and I want to say it was like 50. So, you know, if you're looking to do this, shop around, get a few estimates, get 3. You know, don't go with the lowest, don't go with the highest. Maybe pick the guy in the middle. You know, and then feel them out. Make sure that they you trust them to do what needs to be done. If you're in the Colorado area, I highly recommend Aztec. Those guys are phenomenal.
Yeah, like Ramon. I've had to talk to him a few times. Good guy.
And it was kind of the same thing with HVAC. I got 2 HVAC quotes, and one guy was obscenely expensive, and the other guy was right around $20,000. You know, I think. And the electricity was a big difference. So it's all about subs. Like, you know, make sure that I don't want to say vetting because you really can't vet, but like talk to your subs and get a feel for what's going on if you're doing this yourself. Because my electrician, when I sent him the plans, he was like, why in the heck are you doing this? What? You don't need this. You don't need that. You don't need this. Like this is a $54,000 project just for electrical. I can cut that down to 30 for you if we just get rid of some of the stuff that's unnecessary.
Well, now that you've been in the building for 2 years, have you suffered because of that decision?
Not at all. Like,
you're not like missing outlets, or you're like, man, I just
no.
Okay.
He's like the lighting that the architect, you know, said. Like, I mean, these architects are sitting they're sitting in their office behind their computer thinking that everything they do is 100% correct. But then you get a good electrician with experience or a good plumber with experience. And they're like, man, this guy over-engineered or everything about this building. Like, you don't need half this stuff, man. And you can still function, you know? and I remember going through that process, and it was like, it was really cool to have subs that we could trust and that were kind of helping us out through the process. I felt like everybody we hired was honest, had good integrity, and I felt like when it was all said and done, like they kind of got a piece of Great Western. They were like, man, this is really cool what you're doing as a company. Like, you're building a building for a company. This is awesome. And so, you know, they and coming down to Larkspur to hang out for 2 weeks to do plumbing work or electricity work or whatever is a pretty nice place to hang out. You know,
it is, because at lunchtime you can swing down. At lunchtime, you can swing down to the gas station there and get some pretty killer sandwiches.
Yeah, exactly. It was just a cool project. I think everybody on site just kind of came together and thought of it as a cool project. And, you know, there was nobody trying to, you know, like backdoor shit or, you know, like take money where it wasn't needed. It was all set up and ran smooth. And I contribute that to my general contractor, Lee. You know, Lee is
what's his company?
Oh man,
just Lee, general contractor.
No,
Lee.
it's OLP Construction.
OLP Construction. All right. So if you're on the Front Range and you need a good general contractor, call OLP Construction.
Yeah,
just an honest certified
guy that's going to do what he can to save you money and get the job done correctly.
Right. Great Western Tree Care.
And for the record, it's Lee Oliver, OLP. Yeah.
Oh, that's the guy that I met when he was installing your windows. Chad.
Did you meet him?
Yeah, I was at your building because I was down from Grand Junction, and
Okay.
he was doing the windows, and I was asking questions. He said, "Oh, the GC's here," and I look at him, and he's like, turns around from a window that he's actually installing.
Oh,
And,
he was, he
yeah.
helped me frame all the office out. He helped me lay the drywall. He helped me lay the floor, man. He was like in it. He would,
Yeah.
that was his thing. He would just hang out all day and help work.
Yeah, he was easy going too.
Yeah, cool guy.
Usually, in my industry, when I talk to a general contractor, it's like, all right, here it comes. I'm going to, they're going to tell me everything that we did wrong with pre-engineered metal buildings,
Right.
But, a really, really nice guy.
I mean, the only thing I can say for anybody watching this, and this is not because, Eric is my friend and Seth is my friend as well. I'm not going to talk bad about any competitors in the metal building industry. I'd never chatted with any of them. I never met any of them. But all I can tell you, like with GWB, if you are looking to buy a metal building for a backyard shop, a commercial building, whatever, anything, just know that they're honest. Like they're not in the game just to take your money and walk away. If there are issues, they will help you figure it out. You need to know as the purchaser, what you're getting into. And I think that this podcast or anything that Eric and GWB moving forward to help explain to people what they're actually getting into, because it's not just as easy as waking up one morning and saying, I'm going to put up a building. There's a lot that goes into it. So, really think about it. And I know that the folks at GWB, all their staff will help you. They'll walk you through how to do this correctly. And that's huge, man. Just make sure you do it correctly. And I can tell you from personal experience that GWB helped me through the process tremendously. And if there were issues, they were fixed quickly. So
a lot of it was, I jumped in where I could, but a lot of that was just, the back end of the company. But thank you, Chad. That was.
No, you guys are awesome. And,
Seth.
if you're in Montana, you need a building put up, you're going to watch this, man, call Seth. I don't care what it is. Seth is like me. If something needs to be done, there's always a way to get it done until there's not. I will pull every tool out of the shed, every bolt out of the bolt pile in the garage. I will figure out a way to make it happen until I'm sitting there in a position like there's no option. There's just no way. Which is rare.
There's always an option. I tell Nicole this too. When I wind up into a real mess at home, I'm like, you know what? If Seth was here, this would have been done. Right?
There you go.
It's like, so, well, hey, Chad, thank you for those nice words.
Yeah.
And hey, Seth, thank you. And Braden, thank you. One thing that I did just want to mention here is, and there'll be some more money descriptions and stuff down in whatever way we're going to present that. Chad's building is a commercial building, right? A GC is required, or at least in Colorado, GC is required. Whereas a residential building, it's not. It's got a tremendous amount of HVAC, insulation, a lot of interior build out, all top rate products where, if you're going with just a 40 by 60 backyard workshop, you're not spending that much. We're going to try to do some interviews with customers that are not in the commercial setting, where they don't have to jump through all the hoops with the building authority and everything. But, and I'm not even sure I'm talking into my mic anymore because I'm just too focused on the screen. But, yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for being willing to share how much everything costs. 'Cause I think that's really beneficial for anybody, especially who's looking to do a commercial building.
Right. So it's $80,000 for the building, $20,000 for the erection, $30,000 for the foundation. What'd you say? $20,000 for dirt work, or no less than that?
A little bit less.
Right. And then, I guess we'll just get down to the whole nuts and bolts of it. You said you spent about $500,000, just under 500,000.
Yep.
Garage, everything all included, including your interior build out and everything. Kitchen sink and dishwasher.
Yep.
And it's a tremendous amount of money, but compared to, stick build or what you might buy for a traditional metal building. All right, not a traditional metal building, but just a traditional building. It seems like a deal, but you were heavily involved
From day one,
right?
and I still am. It's still changing. So, but it's worth it. You know, I mean, 500 grand, it's worth it in the long run. You know, it gives you something that, you know, it's not going to rot. You're not going to get termites. You know, it's a solid building that I know is going to be there for a long, long time after I'm gone, man. So it's cool stuff.
Good.
Something I can leave behind.
Good. Well, thank you, Chad.
Yep.
Hey, Seth, thank you. Glad you did this one. And we'll get you in on some of the other ones that you've done. Seth's done some pretty amazing stuff with metal buildings. So
Yeah, I always estimate that price per square foot for concrete with dirt work, concrete, rebar, and everything else is $20 a square foot. That's just ballpark. And typically that comes out pretty close to a little bit under what the price of the building comes to. And that's what scares customers away. That gives you a full foundation, completely done, finished, and move on. And the price of your erection should be about half of what you pay for the building. That is.
well, if you're getting a professional crew, but I mean, probably 50% of our customers do it themselves. Actually, some of the best work that I've seen done. I mean, professional crews are saying, you know, Seth, your trim work is fabulous. But I've seen some trim work from customers that have never built anything. It was probably because they're retired, they have the time. And I'm like, wow, you did it, man. Congratulations.
And time is money, and that's what it comes down to, is if you can rent the equipment and keep the equipment on site for the time that you're doing it, because I get plenty of customers that want me to put the building up, and I give them a price and they go, oh man, that's too expensive. Well, it's going to take me 2 weeks to put your building up, but it's going to take you 2 months to put it up, and you're going to pay for that rental equipment. And by the time you're paying for 2 months worth of rental equipment, I could have done it, saved you all the headaches, and we could have moved on. I'd have to say 75% of the building cost equates to concrete, and then half of the building cost equates to the erection cost. Those are your three large numbers. You have your building cost, your erection cost, and your concrete cost. You have three numbers. At the end of those three numbers, your building is done enough that it's dried in and somebody can come finish it later on their day off.
You're talking about like an interior build-up.
Or the customer. Yeah, no, to finish it out. If it's just a barn or a shop or a garage, it's done at that point. But anything beyond that, most customers can take over. But most customers cannot do the concrete, the dirt work, and the rebar, and then switch over and do the erection of the steel building and dry it in and finish it up.
All right. Well, with that said, I'm Eric. Thank you, guys. Chad, thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're a gentleman and a scholar, or at least
There's not many of us left,
a
man.
gentleman.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing the final product.
All right.
Take it easy.
I'll see you guys.